Final session brings us to the hearts of programmatic evolution context. Our speakers will dive deep into the topic, the power of context navigating a multi-platform programmatic world. In a world in a world of endless screens, context is what brings relevance and resonance. Let's welcome our stellar panelists. First up, we have Nitin Guleria, Deputy General Manager and Head of Media Mobile at Samsung Mobile. Kanika Anand, General Manager Media Airtel. Harkawal Singh, Vice President Marketing, HCD+International Markets, RSPL Group. Dimpy Yadav, Head of Digital Strategy, Mindshare India. Nidhi Rastogi, Marketing Director, UNIQLO. And this panel will be moderated by Anubhav Nayyar, Chief Business Officer at Kindred. I request all the speakers and panelists to please come on stage. Session for the evening. Over to you, Anubhav.
Just checking. Yep, sounds good. Okay. Last panel for the day is always fun. So we're keeping you, we're the panel, we're the folks who are going to keep you between the drinks and the food outside. So that's good. It's a fascinating topic, how context is becoming extremely important today. So I'm super excited to moderate, this panel, incredible leaders. And what really stood out for me was like a really diverse leadership group, specifically coming from different parts of the industry. We've got some, great experience coming in from agencies. We've got great experience, consumer durables, FMCG, throw in a telco in the middle, and and retail. So it's truly diverse, truly exciting to have this conversation. So I guess just to set some context for the broader group, and we'll keep this panel extremely dynamic. I think a lot has changed, right? It's a cliche to say that, but I would say over the past 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, over that time frame, the way we were typically looking at programmatic advertising was more about device IDs, how do you target people, third-party data, et cetera, et cetera. And there is so much that has changed now, right? And it's clear that context is extremely important. But what I would love to get into a discussion is to just take one step deeper and try and understand that, if you're looking at some businesses, we've got Samsung on the panel, so naturally, CTV is a big area in which I believe the company is investing. You've also got FMCG brands on the panel, so how do you actually build context for such diverse categories? So I think it's extremely important, and the best example I can think of is how a cup of coffee, if you're say Nescafe and you want to advertise on different media sources, how would the same ad be perceived over a CTV product, over something on digital? And I shouldn't say over something over digital, I should be very specific where on digital. So I think context is naturally extremely important. So maybe let me start with you, Nitin, throwing you under the bus. You obviously as a business are operating across multiple devices. Firstly, would it be fair to say you're still mobile first? Or are you, given the strong emphasis you're putting on CTV and other platforms, how are you seeing context changing in terms of how you're going to market?
Sure, thank you. Okay, hi, thanks. First of all, thanks and everybody, welcome to the panel. I think, yes, as a portfolio company, for us, mobile first is the game right now, because obviously, given that some of our products are basically trying to drive the whole brand, for those we look out to, reach out to as many people as we can. So there, obviously, given the population and the digital population mostly is on mobile. So yes, it is mobile first, but CTV is coming big time up. To answer your second question, which is like how important it is for us because we are dealing with so many products and categories. How does the context applications apply here? I think, see, what's happening is, because of, there is so much of UGC content that has been created, right? Currently, social and YouTube are the two platforms which are basically giving you in and day out new content, new trends, I don't know what not, right? Every day there's a hashtag challenge that is going on viral, and you don't know where to put that, right? So somebody very rightly said that I may target a music enthusiast, but that music might be bhajans 6 o'clock in the morning, and some uncle who does not understand. I am targeting an AI product, but the uncle is probably like listening to his morning routine, going through the bhajans. But there is no sub-categorization there, right? So I think that in that aspect, I think the platforms are not doing a really great job in terms of defining the context or the content along with that, right? Which is essentially a shortfall currently that everybody needs to solve. How we are trying to solve it, we are basically diving deeper, like trying to basically figure out more which channels are being consumed, how many times are consumed, you know, try and get more deeper sense of within that context or the basic targeting, where is it relevant messaging. So I think that's how we are dealing it with currently.
That's actually an interesting segue, and maybe, Dimpy, let me throw this to you. You're sort of sitting at the center of, you know, there's the brands, there's the publishers, there's the platforms. Who's doing a good job at contextualizing?
See, I'll say, I can't say who's doing a good job and who's not. I think it's a mix and match of all. Everyone has to come together for anything to actualize into a success, right? For an example, if I talk about Trade Desk, we do have a great solution, OpenPath, when it comes to contextually, but if you don't have an advertiser to run their campaigns on and to walk that journey along, so it's not going to be a success, because then your product just lies there in a DSP. And then agency has to come and join those dots together. And I think nobody can understand that better than you. When you build a great proposition in terms of using a technology, that's so intense and so deep in itself that to further make it a 360-degree solution, you need to have more access to inventories, channels. Then comes a part of, you know, client-side world, which is more to do with not just creatives, but there's a lot of math that goes behind, which is what should be your consumer strategy, what should be your market prioritization, how you need to go after your campaign objective, a brand building objective, etc. So I feel that it's a match of all three pillars that have to come together to then further move towards success. But yes, if you feel that it's job of either a publisher or a client or agency to do that, you know, to give that success to a brand, that's not really true. So I'll say it's all three of us.
Interesting. So yeah, I think it definitely makes sense that all these three worlds are coming together. You know, you mentioned data, and I guess, Kanika, I'll throw this to you. Nobody sits on more. Well, there are companies who sit on a lot of data, but as somebody who manages, you know, the media business at Airtel, telcos have a plethora of data, right? Lots of information, understanding users, understanding devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Curious to know that, from your experience, how are you seeing context change in terms of A, how you're using your data, B, in terms of how you're potentially using your marketing channels, and finally, also across platforms?
So I'll answer this in 3 parts, like you asked me for. So the way we are managing our own data, now we almost control like 300 million audience base. So if you're sitting on such rich data, what we are trying to see that the consumer behavior is also kind of changing now. It's no more, the audience have so many options on, you know, what is getting consumed. So from cricket to, like Nitin was mentioning, there's so much on social, YouTube. There are so many content pieces and there are so many choices that one has. So the way we are navigating the journey internally is that for all our own base channels, we see now data loans is one thing which is coming up big time. Now, you know, your 1 GB data gets over very, very quickly. So then consumers want to top up, and we are targeting them in real time, like, you know, when it's, say, in the, you know, in the afternoon, then we are pitching them a higher plan. But if it's night time, say at 11 o'clock in the night, then it's a 9 rupee top up that we are offering. So it's real time data that we are checking what does the consumer want and then pitching them the right products. So that's the way the evolution is happening internally. Now, if I look at it from a marketing lens or initiative, like Nitin mentioned earlier rightly, that, even if you want to reach them in the right context and with the right, messaging, sometimes I think not everywhere the context gets very, very relevant. So I'll just give you an example on what we did for one of our campaigns, which was a entertainment-led offering that we were giving to our consumers for a Wi-Fi business. We wanted to chase people who were looking at only, say, web series, consuming a lot of movie content, and we wanted to chase only those specific cohorts. We did a lot of targeting on YouTube and lots of other platforms. We were able to, I think, maybe navigate a scale of, say, only about a 30-40 million audience, which was the right context. So, and getting them real-time triggers from that standpoint. I think there is a lot of work to be done on the scale right now from the relevancy of the context, because otherwise in this lower attention economy, it's very difficult to navigate this journey. So that is one piece. In terms of platforms, I think we are looking at YouTube as our biggest choice in terms of anything else, while open internet is also becoming a big play there. We are looking at a lot of experiments, and we do a lot of A/B testing to identify what's working and what's not working for us. So yeah.
That's interesting, and I'll come back to innovation in a bit, just to get everyone's perspective on that. But if we've got obviously different categories. So Harkawal, for you, let's take Ghadi detergent, right? That's obviously a flagship product in your business. For what is essentially an FMCG product, where often, decisions, it's hard to influence decisions for what is essentially a category leader, very, very strong brand. How are you, given the target audience, how is the organization adapting its communication strategy? How are you looking at different platforms? Obviously, we've heard the usual names being, coming up because of their reach, etc. But is there a difference in terms of your go-to-market right now? And B, for what I would call a little bit more traditional, but extremely, businesses which are actually brands which are at scale, how's the advertising, I guess, context changing for you?
So before I answer that, there's the question you'd asked Dimple, whose responsibility it is. In my understanding, the responsibility lies with the marketing team, the client. If he or she has the clarity, what they want to achieve, then platform is there to provide you the opportunity, and let's say the media house is there to ensure that the execution happens to the last mile. Coming back to your question, see, especially in mass products, bulk of whatever digital or platforms that are being used is more from a top funnel point of view. That is one. Currently, the biggest advantage that digital gives to mass brands is that from a per 10 second, you are just working on a per impression. So you can do a lot of more storytelling at a similar cost or a lower cost compared to your traditional media. So that is where you'll find a lot of mass brands or FMCG brands which are not very high on ASP, the average selling price. They would like to do more of brand building, because there's so much competition. You just need to ensure that the brand relevance remains, the brand love remains. So, and that is how platforms are being used, and hence you will find a lot of FMCG brands which are in the belly of the market or the bottom of the market. They are using more walled gardens because storytelling is possible there compared to, let's say, open internet. The second question was, sorry, the second part of your question was?
I think largely, are you seeing a difference in the way you're communicating also? So I think you've talked about the platforms.
Yeah. So continuing, the communication is digital or the platforms. As I said, one is being used for a lot of storytelling, because that gives you an opportunity to run a 1 minute, 2 minute on whether it is topical or a Mother's Day or a Children's Day, wherever contextually you can fit in your brand and what it stands for. And the other is that it helps you to build frequency. For mass brands, still TV will always be the lead reach builder. But then you can, build up a lot of frequency with these platforms, and also be a little more contextual. So if the platform is able to provide you, you can be at the right moment, at the right point, to just give that last push or a nudge to tilt the scale, especially in categories where differentiation, brand differentiations are also relatively very fine between two brands. So at the end of the day, and we know basis household data that categories like detergents and soap, the loyalty is not fixed to a one brand. They'll be buying 3 to 4 brands in a year as per household data. So it's at that moment of time, if you are able to give that nudge, you can get that switch happening, either at the point of sale, if it is offline, or on the online.
Interesting. So Nidhi, I'll start with you. I'll open it up to, again, would love to get first, brand perspective, and then I'll also like to get Dimpy's perspective on this. For brands, naturally, the way clearly, there's a theme coming through that there is a multi-platform adaptation, but at the same time, it's still gravitating towards sort of the usual suspects. Communication is changing and so on. I guess, to put it very, very simply, when you are looking at reaching out to your audience, you obviously are setting some set of KPIs, right? Very broadly. There's a time when we're looking at impression-based campaigns. Now, click-throughs are changing. Sometimes the amount of time spent for, a fashion leader brand such as yours, naturally you're talking to a very specific cohort of audience in a specific manner. Are you seeing the way in which you're defining success for your campaigns in specifically keeping in mind content and therefore, the discussion that we're having, has that been changing or is it still kind of similar?
Simply put, everything boils down to whether we are able to make sales or not, right? So I think even for us, and specifically UNIQLO, I always say that marketing team is actually the growth and the sales team, because eventually we look at how are we moving the needle on sales. How it has changed, and especially with programmatic, is it has given us, fashion is very different for different people. It's extremely personal. How you see it versus how I see it, how a Delhiite see it versus how the Mumbaiker sees it. So that is where, context and content, and specifically programmatic, really helps, because those cuts which were not possible before is possible now. And, to just give you an example, like, we have heat tech, which, if some of you know, is our patented technology of thermals. And in Delhi, obviously, it's very obvious that, it does well because it's winter. But we started seeing that even Mumbai, it was one of the top sellers when we launched in Mumbai. And we were wondering what is the reason. And we realized that travel demand is extremely high. So the product is the same, but the context and the content changes. So when we started marketing in Mumbai, we started traveling as the communication, whereas in Delhi, we are talking about the fact that it keeps you warm. And that is, it's the same product, but how it changes across TGs, across demo, across geo, that is where, our role comes in. And then, we see how we sort of move the needle of sales of that particular product.
Interesting. So I guess like very specific targeting naturally is extremely critical. Nitin, your thoughts, the way you're today defining different segments, are you seeing a change in success criteria? Like when you're, looking at in terms of your go-to-market, is the success criteria that you're mapping today, is it different than what it was even a year back? And if so, how is it?
If we,
other than sales, okay? Everyone wants sales, yeah, I get that. So other than sales.
No, I think obviously the KPIs hasn't changed much if the bottom line has to be said. But certainly what the different cohorts and these targeting and the context has done is like, because you're now getting more and more information about your consumers. So what you can do is you can intelligently basically create different set of cohorts, and basically your communication can vary, as she was rightly mentioning. But also, you'll have to look at it from an angle, since we're talking about the KPI, how are you going to measure it? So for example, somebody a fence sitter, right? For example, I don't want to name it, but yeah, let's say there's a fruit company which sells phone. And we want to target those guys, and they want to convert into, let's say, Samsung buyers, right? So we have to understand that their behavior, their apprehensions are very different than a loyalist that I already have. My loyalist might need a very small nudge to get a conversion, or to make him react to anything that I'm launching, versus vis-a-vis the other guys, right? So I think then what we have done is like we've segregated those different cohorts, and basically different cohorts now has different measurement criteria. Like if even I'm able to convince them and basically make them visit my page, slowly, steadily they will come around, right? So a sale cannot be the eventual goal for everybody. So what I'm trying to say is like there's a set of loyalists which will always follow you. There's a set of new recruitment that you've got to look at, and there is a set of aspiration or the the addressable market that you're slowly trying to approach. So all three has to be considered along with the cohorts and the context. So that's how we look at it.
Interesting. I think before I get a perspective from Dimpy in terms of how it's mapping out over there, I guess Kanika, Harkawal, anything to add? Just differences that you're seeing across. Could be on communication, could be on what's not only defining success for a campaign, but also any success parameter that you were typically not seeing earlier, but has suddenly started growing, to be extremely important.
I think maybe 2 years back, we were not making platform-centric creatives. Now we've transitioned into making platform-centric creatives. What goes on CTV doesn't necessarily go on mobile, doesn't necessarily go on Reels. So all of that is changing and evolving because consumers' choices, the stay, the scroll time, the gaze time, everything is getting impacted. And on the KPI or the metrics, earlier we were all stuck to, say, a VTR, CTR, etc. Those were the vanity metrics that we would go after. But now it's evolving to what's the scroll time, what's the dwell time, what is the content they are watching, is it long form, is it short form? All of that changes the context very much. So therefore, in fact, we are also looking at more engagement kind of metrics, which is to do with that, do we introduce QR codes on CTV? Because if that is helping get better traction or there is an interaction which is getting built, otherwise we would not know all of that. There are other formats also which are evolving, which are more immersive now, right, both on mobile and CTV. So I think we're looking at metrics which are more engagement-led rather than just the vanity metrics on viewability and all the top funnel things. Yeah.
Harkawal, any difference that you're seeing?
Yeah, so the change which is happening, which is now far more visible, is earlier you were a little constrained, though you have defined your cohort, and you say, okay, your cohort watches, Star World, English GC content. But then you did not have the flexibility of serving different content pieces on that program. So that would have been your task for the day or the month. Whether it is on the top funnel, middle funnel, or the bottom funnel, you are still serving the same dish or the same content to your entire cohort or TG. Today, what digital is giving you the opportunity, and a lot of people are adopting, that within a cohort and with the data that is available, I can slice it into whether this set of people are in my, I need to attack them on the first funnel or the second or the third, and hence I can customize. So I think that is one change which is happening, which is very beneficial from a marketer point. If you are able to cut your data that way, then you are far more precise and your ROI would be much better. Otherwise, you are advertising on KBC. Usme could be a user also, a lapser also, or a non-user also of the same, your cohort is same. Demographics, psychographics, everything is same. So this is what now digital various platforms are helping you. Earlier you were able to do it at maybe a geography level or let's say at an age level, or at certain psychographics I only advertise in English GEC or Hindi GEC. But now you can decide and sharpen on your consumer TG and what do you want to serve them.
Well, I think and that's very interesting coming from you because, you would think for an FMCG brand like such as the ones that you're managing, dicing and slicing audiences would be important, but relatively maybe a little lesser. So I think it's great to see that happening. So I guess, Dimpy, I'll come to you. I'll add another layer on top of this, which is that when you're working with different brands, different organizations, the way when you're strategically planning with them, are the discussions changing in terms of what is defining success? That's one. And since we are talking about multi-platforms, I'm also curious to understand, is it almost like a brief coming to you and you're suggesting a multi-platform approach? Normally, I would imagine that will be happening together. Or is there actually a change coming in like, hey, we want this for CTV at this time, we want this for mobile and so on? So I guess there are two questions here.
Thank you for asking that question, because I think that's our day-to-day life that happens, right? I'll say it's a journey. There are a lot of brands and advertisers which are far more advanced already, on this roadmap of AI, contextual, where they understand it's beyond audiences they have to go even now, right? Then there are many more who really needs that hand-holding, and of course, depending on what's required is where we step in. But to answer your question, when it comes to, what should be the outcome model, yes, it's not just, conversions at the end. And I'm really happy because recently I got this brief where clearly evaluation matrix was written as that, ROAS can be preferred, but not an ultimate evaluation metric for the campaign. Very, very rarely do we, get to hear that. And why is that important? See, there's one revenue-based conversion that directly look at that, how much revenue, how many conversion models are you getting at. But then there's more happening now, especially last 2 years, what we have seen, that when you talk about attribution, it's not just about attributing which channel or which media is leading to that conversion, but clients are going really after understanding that what pattern in my media campaign is attributing to it, which has nothing to do with your channels or media impressions getting delivered, but even impression slots. Like, is my impression load of morning versus my impression load of evening, does that have a different impact on my conversion ratio? And the answer is yes, because that's happening. So when there are a lot of course, regression models that you work after, but you're able to then identify. And if you really break down your campaign and their success matrix, depending the funnel, which is awareness, mid and the bottom one, you will see that if you stop it there, if you don't just rush after ROAS eventually, you'll be able to define these models in a much more nicer manner, in a much more detailed manner, which will eventually impact the ROAS for you. Like for an example, if you pick your awareness campaign, if you know that reach along with viewability, along with say frequency matters to me, and we'll stop our goal here, and let's index that what reach at what frequency, comes at a better efficient cost to me. If you're able to take that as a hook, your next stage will be much more refined, which means that your next stage attribution will be much more effective and efficient. And again, if you stop your engagement level campaign only till CPC and dwell time and time spent and engagement ratios, then your ROAS will definitely by default, increase. But if we only go after ROAS, there will definitely come a saturation point where we will not know what to fix, what not to fix. And which we all have seen that we face it. But then comes different channels and different platforms playing a different role there. So I definitely do see a change in evaluation matrix happening. And even furthermore, I've seen now advertisers actively, proactively going beyond just regular, brand health studies. They're going after advanced triple M's, which is digital native triple M's, not just regular traditional ones, which is more real time, more not just waiting for quarterly reports to come in, but a weekly based outputs. And I'm very happy to share Angel One is one of a such client, where attribution happens even for awareness campaign, like one of the biggest impact, I'll say property, IPL, where attribution in terms of how this reach is eventually, putting any kind of implication on conversions and how do we have to work around that, which involves a lot of data to understand. And contextually, of course, semantics has to be understood even in that manner. It's not just about placements of the ad, but how your campaign is playing a role. So yes, the landscape has really changed.
Interesting. So I think I'll throw this out to maybe Nidhi, because you talked about, having a very, very focused cohort, of users, different occasions, etc. We also talked a bit about, how, I guess, like a lot of advertising spend is still getting restricted to a great extent within the, within the walled gardens. So I guess it's not because we were at a trade desk event, but I guess I'm also interested to understand that what can brands do specifically, or are brands doing enough? I'd love to hear from you in terms of, your use case where that it's a very niche use case that you're looking at. And sometimes just the bigger channels are, it's like a highway, right? And there's just like a lot of traffic over there, and you're trying to identify a few use cases, and therefore you're just probably wasting money. So I guess would love to understand that, A, what are the efforts, or is there a strong initiative to sort of go beyond these traditional channels? That's one. And I have to throw in the customary, is there a use of AI, or is there a strong use of data that your organization is adopting to A, go beyond these, walled gardens? And also, I guess, secondly, understanding, what are the specific use cases for different cohorts?
Yeah, so, like you mentioned, we are a niche brand. We are a premium fashion segment. So we also have to approach it in a manner that there is just that much audience that we can reach out to, and avoid spillage and be as efficient as possible. So for us, relevancy is a lot more important than reach, and that's what we look at. And in doing so, most of our endeavor is towards finding who are possible TGS, whether it's across geo and across demo, and what is the kind of communication that we can do with different TG. I think that's that's eventually what our aim is, to finally get them to build the brand. Like, we are absolutely SCC a brand. There are only maybe 40-50 million users who can buy UNIQLO. So when that happens, I think a lot of our effort goes into finding what is that customer motivation towards buying fashion, towards buying our particular product, and hence what is the kind of communication that we can do. And a lot of our effort is towards that. So for example, just to give an example, if we have, say, a campaign of linen shirt, to somebody, the linen shirt will be appealed, say, to an office-going person, it will, the quality and the premiumness. To a fashion-forward person, it will be the colors. And to, say, a younger generation, it will be the style. So we look at one particular product and we see what is the different way, and then what is the different platforms that we can talk to. So we may do something on Twitter, we have a different communication on Instagram, and we may have a different communication on LinkedIn, for example. And most of our effort is just going towards personalization, and that's where AI comes in, because it gives us that information, it gives us that data, and it helps us fine-tune our data.
Very interesting. So, Nitin, I guess just tweaking the question a bit more for you. Naturally, you're seeing a lot of innovation, specifically within the CTV space. What are some of the things that you're seeing may not still be relevant in India? Maybe it's still not so prevalent. I mean, CTV adoption is happening. But how do you see that landscape, sort of evolving over a period of time, specifically in this market? Maybe taking the learnings of, in terms of the experience that you're seeing globally from, I guess, other regions.
No, so thankfully, the only privilege that I have is, like, we manufacture CTVs as well. So
small advantage.
Yeah, so I think CTV is here to stay, to be honest. Roughly 90% of the televisions currently which are being sold in the market are smart TVs now. So I think the penetration is going to grow stronger and stronger. Although as an advertiser, I think because it is somewhere in between, people are confused because it's digital, but you can't do much digital there. You can't touch the screen, you can't interact. And there is very limited interactive ad units as well, which are like there. Like, only the thing that I've seen mostly is, like, scan barcodes, right? By the time you pull out your phone, try to scan it, the ad is gone. So I think, for first question, yes, CTV will stay. It will grow, definitely. Is it helpful for the advertisers? Yes, it is. But I think in terms of, if you want to make it like evolve better than linear TV, it needs to deliver more in terms of those, measurement, whether it's measurement, interactive, ad units, and also, I mean, I was just giving an example today morning itself, like, try typing password through a TV remote. Like, and now if you think that from a digital perspective, you want to measure like how much ROAS or lead or your sales you've got from that campaign, I mean, it needs to do a seamless job. So I think there is potential, but there is also, a huge opportunity to basically, fix the interactive part of CTVs.
Dimpy, are you seeing different brands being sort of willing to adopt different platforms strongly over the last 6 months?
Yes, very well. And I would say one is sitting right, left to me, right? UNIQLO, I mean, when they launched in India, Bombay, I mean, if you have seen that entire campaign, the way it have been curated, like Gen AI at the core tech. So yes, and it's a, I mean, campaign that happened long ago, right? It's not even a recent campaign. So yes, there are brands definitely going that way. Even on CTV, I would, want to just add to it. So see, in today's world, when we are talking about contextual, that's not just contextual, it's more generative AI is the new word for that you can see. And that's not just coming in picture of, for us when we're using our social Instagrams filters, but it's to do more than that, right? It's not just converting your text to chat or something like that. So when I talk about ads as of today, conversational ad is something that can be built on CTV, video, display, all of it, with tech coming into picture, right? And we have a lot many partners even in India. Singapore is a market which has a lot of already evolved solves coming into it. And yes, when I talk about brands, they're really using it. Though it started initially only from just trying, how Gen AI really works, is that going to lead a good impact for me? But now it's getting more. Recently, if you look at, Google search ads, Gemini, of course, was launched quite ago, but the latest update that came for search campaigns, that was more to do with semantics only. That was more to do with NLP at the base, at the core, to understand that what is the semantic and what is the emotional sentiment of the search which is happening. Like for an example, smoking addiction versus smoking reforms. They both, as a term, carry a very different meaning. Now, if you want to place your ad against something which talks about a healthy lifestyle, where you quit smoking, for a brand like, immunity, I'll say product, it's a great placement. But if you only go after keyword, then the smoking is the keyword, right? Even in smoking addiction, I'll say page, you'll be there. But which is where then contextually and using tech, you're able to identify the sentiment of the page. Whether the entire article, is it about reform or addiction? And what is the content about it? It is something to do with more empathy, or is it something to do where you're talking negative about anything, right? So yes, I'll say things have really advanced. And it's not just about brands adopting them in marketing world, but also when you look at their side, which is by the time you activate a media campaign, there's a lot that happens. Even in the retail, stores, the way consumers are coming in, interacting with your products, and the tech that you've enabled there. Even basic tech, like we all have gone, I love that brand, Zara, right? When we check out, we may not have noticed, but they only ask us that if you have got your app, show me the QR. So it's so seamless integration that my offline experience is connected with my online experience. But at the back end, that's the tech. And no time you'll see these tech being very much, I'll say, a normal routine checkout experience. And once that's a norm in India, it's going to take hardly any time for that entire experience to come onto your ads, right? And you would have all the signals about your consumers. What are they buying? How are they buying? What is the purchase pattern? Buying value, returning value, etc. So I think, yes, the journey is really advanced. And especially when I talk about urban cities and legacy brands, they're really, at it in their game. And even when you look at new age brands, especially in FMCG and beauty as a category, so India landscape is changing completely from, all the aspects.
Great. So I'm going to round this up with a question to both of you. And I'll start with you, Harkawal, and maybe Kanika, you can round it up. So in both your businesses, respective businesses, I think what you're offering is I would say that, let me put it a bit differently, that personalization is a big challenge, right? Because you're offering a detergent, and yes, there are different, variations and variants within that. But generally speaking, personalization, when you compare to a fashion brand, et cetera, is much lesser. And same is the case in terms of what Airtel offers. So I'm curious to know that how are you using, and maybe if there's an example of AI in terms of how you're driving higher personalization across the board for just, better ROAS or better sales, as was mentioned earlier.
So AI in that sense is helping you, as Dimple said. Dimpy said, sorry. You can customize your communication very fast. So what I'm trying to say, the fundamentals remain the same. earlier somebody in your media agency, and I'm talking way back, would tell you why advertise in a, let's say, a Femina versus Women's Era. If there are certain people who still remember these brands. So there was a certain level of, let's say, a personality that got attached with those two magazines. That was being done by somebody individually using his intelligence. Today, whether a page, what kind of sentiment it is it positive, negative, happy, sad, or whatever, that is being done by the machine. So in that sense, because your content is so much, it is AI will help you, on those fronts. Overall, yes, today on a content, yes, you can customize it. As of now, especially in mass products, that is where only AI today can help you to create those cohorts and kind of deliver customized solutions to them.
I think the way I look at it is that today AI is helping us not just in creating different comms for personalizing to different types of cohorts, but also how we are customizing just the fact that the sheer time used to curate a creative has really gone down with AI. Now we are using a lot more elements on AI to train, various tools to understand our prompts and create like ad units which can be replicated. So from a DOH to an OH to actually a static image and even like a 6-seconder asset, all of that can be customized using an AI. So we're inputting a lot of effort there, and our teams are making a lot of effort there. However, from the platform-centric lens, since we operate at a very different scale, there is only say a 10 or 20 odd % that you can personalize, while you could do a lot more targeting, better cohorting, all of that is possible. But I think there's a long way to go there. Even on, if we've used certain platforms like a Trade Desk or any other DSPs for that matter, we've looked at, we're moving from just say, telling them that these are the set of keywords and this is a set of audience that I want to reach out to. We are expanding our horizons and using their tech and their, DSPs to help us understand what are the keywords which goes beyond. So it's moving away from a keyword only to a lot more other elements which are getting added. So I think the base is getting expanded that way. So both happening on the creative front as well as deployment front. Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. I think what's clearly a standout for me is, like, as I mentioned right at the beginning, extremely diverse panel, different industries, different sides of the industry, and a few themes such as, customization definitely kept coming up in as a recurring theme across the board. Slice and dice, kind of similar to customization. Speed to market is something which is interesting, and I'm pleasantly happy to hear that. I think that there is a natural evolution which has happened in terms of, what success basically looks like. So I think that's truly incredible. Just, I think it's been a fantastic discussion. A round of applause for such an incredible panel, please. Thank you.
That was really a very interesting discussion, and thanks to all our speakers. And I would request all of you to please remain on stage and request Rahul Puri to present token of appreciation. Can we have a huge round of applause for our last and final session of the evening? Thank you, everyone. As we wrap up today's intellectually charged sessions, let's raise a toast to ideas, innovation, and insightful conversation. A very big thank you to our exclusive presenting partner, the Trade Desk, for powering this platform of progressive thinking and meaningful dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, drinks are now being served, followed by dinner. Let's take the conversation forward, deepen the relationships, and let the ideas flourish. Thank you and have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend ahead.